So this is the first 50 minutes of Broken Sword, Shadow of the Templars, the director's cut. So this version was released quite recently. The original game is from 1996 and is often hailed as one of the great adventure games from the point and click genre. So let's get into it.
Paris, city of love, romance and dreams. So they say. I used to say it too, but ever since that day, the day of the murder, I've always associated my beloved Paris with death. I was at home having a bath when my editor called.
Collard, get your ass over to the Palais Royal now. You got an interview. With Pierre Carchon. Yes, the Pierre Carchon. No photos, so leave your gear at home. He asked for you personally. Don't ask me why. Anyhow, this could be big, so if he makes a pass, don't forget. Just smile, say yes, and keep taking notes.
So charming and so very apt. Pierre Carchon was a media king, a national hero, and one of the most infamous adulterers in Europe. He and his wife Imelda were just one step down from royalty. Whoa, I hate mimes, but unless you humor them, they don't go away. Here I was, the palace of the Media King and the Ice Queen. I pressed the doorbell and set in motion a chain of events which would change my life forever.
Yes? What is it?
Madame, my name is Nicole Collard. I'm here to see Monsieur Carchon.
Come up, we're on the first floor.
Madame Carchon, it's a pleasure to meet you.
Yes, I'm sure.
The Ice Queen was certainly living up to her reputation. Will you be staying for the interview?
Mademoiselle, I know little of my husband's business affairs, and I care even less. I certainly have no intention of watching him pore over yet another pretty little journalist.
Pretty? You're too kind, madame.
Ah, the talented and very beautiful Mademoiselle Collard. Such a pleasure to meet you at last.
Monsieur Carchon, I am honored.
Oh, I'm sure you are.
Call me Pierre, please. But I do not flatter you idly. I was a friend of your father. He was a great man.
My father? He never mentioned.
He and I were very close. And then his death. So tragic. I must... Imelda, your damned cat's in my study again. Another Ming vase, I suppose. Excuse me for one moment, my dear girl.
You journalists are getting younger each year.
Perhaps it's the rest of the world getting older, madame. That was no cat. My God, what? Monsieur Carchon!
He's dead. I must call the police. You'd better stay here.
There was a man. It was the mime. Do you think he...
Well, I believe we can rule out suicide, don't you?
No wonder they called her the Ice Queen. She would have been top of my list of suspects if I hadn't seen the attacker myself. And if I hadn't come across a couple of murders just like this already. One of the most important men in Europe murdered. And here was I, Nicole Collard, alone at the scene of the crime. Should I wait for the cops? Or start my own investigation? It was a no-brainer.
So that's one sinister mime. So something interesting to note with this game, in the director's cut, this entire opening sequence is not actually part of the original game. They've gone back and subsequently added this entire section with all new voice acting as well, which is quite remarkable and pretty dedicated from the developers.
Mimes and guns don't usually go together, but I had an idea that this was no ordinary mime. I'd come across this murderer before and written about him. The costume killer, at least that's what I'd called him. Some people hate searching corpses for clues. Me, I'm okay with it. Reminds me of an old boyfriend. Carchon had been shot. In his pocket, I found a ticket stamped Bateau de la Conciergerie. Taking the ticket meant I tampered with the evidence. There was no going back now. Carchon had been shot. I closed his eyes. It was the least I could do for the poor fellow. It was one of my hair clips. My favorite, in fact. It must have fallen when I was knocked down.
More like knocked out.
A bust of Pierre Carchon, humble servant of La France. You had to hand it to the Ice Queen. She sure knew her fabrics. A small round piece of glass had been cut out of the pane. This was a professional job. I didn't want to cut myself and leave blood on the glass. Call me old-fashioned, but I like to keep my DNA to myself. The killer must have used a ladder to reach the window. He was long gone. Guess he folded that ladder up, popped it in his pocket and took it with him. The bookcase was filled with obscure first editions. Pierre Carchon again. His eyes seemed to follow me around the room.
I love those hand icons.
The police could turn up at any minute. Somewhere there were clues to the murder, and I needed to find them. She was deep in conversation. She totally ignored me. Imelda was on the phone to the police. Poor guys. I needed to hurry with my investigation before they arrived. Even the telephone was antique. Never trust anyone who owns a phone like that. It was a tube of acrylic paint. French ultramarine. Imelda had talent, but I certainly wasn't going to tell her that. A beautiful cloth had been draped over the table. It was embroidered with an unusual cross. I reckoned that cloth might just turn out to be useful. There was a tiny hole in the tabletop. Part of the inlay had been chipped away. Even my fingernail wouldn't fit into such a small hole. A magnificent antique table. A medieval pageant. Original, no doubt. The tapestry must have cost a fortune. A fine Baroque door. It would look great in my apartment. The door was locked. It was one of my hair clips. My favorite, in fact. It was going to take more than a hair clip to open the door. I needed the key. Just the color I was after for my bathroom.
I'm sorry, I have to go. Someone is...
Young lady, what are you doing? Oh, this paint. It's my favorite color.
For God's sake, keep the damn stuff.
Excuse me, madame.
Yes?
I am so sorry for your loss, madame.
No, you're not. You're a journalist. Journalists don't feel sorry.
Not true.
We shall see.
How cold.
Why did your husband send for me? What did he want to discuss?
I have no idea. His business was his business.
He never told you anything.
No, and frankly, I preferred it that way.
How did your husband know my father?
I have no idea.
You didn't know him? Thierry Collard?
Pierre knew a lot of people I didn't know, most of them women.
Why would a mime want to kill your husband?
Pierre had plenty of enemies. Half the husbands in Paris for a start. This is quite a scoop for you. I suppose you're already inventing the headlines.
Just because I am a journalist.
Don't patronise me. You're all cut from the same cloth. Do you have any moral sense at all?
Yes, that's why I do this job.
You do it to see your name in print.
As if my editor gets the byline, I just do the work.
Well, don't expect my sympathy.
The police will be here soon, madame. Is there anybody you would like me to contact? Family, friends?
No, I have no family. Pierre and I were... He was all I had, really. Not much, was it? The dutiful wife. That was my role. He never talked, never let me in.
I know one thing, madame.
What?
If you want to find out who killed your husband, then you let me do the job, not the police.
Why? How do I know I can trust you?
Your husband invited me here today because he needed me. I think he knew somebody wanted to kill him, and he knew I could help.
I doubt it was your database he was after.
You're wrong. I was onto his killers already, I am sure of it. Please, you owe it to him.
I don't know.
All I need is a few more minutes to look around before the police come.
You really do have a moral sense, don't you? I trust so few people. And perhaps Pierre really did think that you could help. Of course it wouldn't have stopped him seducing you too. Here, take this. It's the key to the drawing room next to the library at the end of the hall. It was Pierre's room. I rarely went in there. I couldn't. I was too scared of what I might find.
Thank you. I promise you won't regret this.
Alright, so we've got the key.
The door was locked. It was the drawing room key. Now we were getting somewhere. I didn't need the lights on. Even the light switch looked impressive. The painting showed the Cachons together, in love. As the poet said, the past is a different country. Or did I read that in a fortune cookie? The painting was attached firmly to the wall. Aha! Aha! There was a small button hidden in the picture frame. There was the very faintest of clicks. Behind the picture was a safe.
Ooh.
The safe was locked. I needed the key. As expected, the desk was yet another priceless antique. Yawn. The blotter and in tray had clearly been placed with mathematical precision. My heart skipped a beat. It was a carved elephant. But not just any carved elephant. It had been made by my father. I knew for certain because in my apartment I had its exact twin, carved into a box he had made. So Cachon had known my father. They really must have been friends. I decided to take the carved elephant. It clearly meant nothing to Imelda. It was a sheet of blotting paper in a leather holder. Its cracked surface looked ancient, reminded me of its owner. The in-tray, like everything else in this place, was beautiful. One day I was going to have an in-tray like that, even if I had to sell my apartment to pay for it. The sofa was antique. For one horrible moment, I had an image of a naked Cachon wriggling around on it with a young journalist. Oh. It was the wrong... Pierre Cachon was stiff for the last time.
Ooh.
Did you find anything?
No, nothing, I'm sorry. And right now she had enough to deal with. I decided a white lie wouldn't do any harm. The real Imelda was clearly emerging. Just one thing. I know this is going to sound strange, but did your husband ever mention, did he ever talk to you about a penguin? Or a snowman?
What? I don't understand.
He never mentioned people dressed up as penguins.
Nico, I don't know what you're talking. My dear, you should go before the police arrive. There will be many awkward questions. I am grateful that
Please. I'd misjudged her. She had every reason to be bitter, living with a guy like Cachon. From the sound of it, no one and nothing was safe around him. Maybe I should have interrogated the cat after all. Aha! Nico, you are just so damn good at this stuff. Instead of comforting Imelda, I was ransacking her flat. Why? Because there was something going on here, and I had to get answers before the cops arrived. And hey, she'd been rude to me, so she had it coming. There was a strange stone cylinder in the safe. In the safe was some kind of artifact. There were strange symbols on its surface. It looked like the printer's blocks I'd made at art school. If there was one thing I'd learned about symbols, they are always important. But these symbols scratched into stone were impossible to read. I needed to find a way of printing them. At least the stone was round. But what could I use for ink? And what could I print on? Sure, I was stealing, but I knew Imelda didn't know about the artifact, and Carchon was past carrying. I'd spread blue paint over the bottom of the tray. It was ruined. I was a very bad girl, but also quite a clever one.
Bad and clever.
I rolled the artifact in the paint until it was completely coated. The cylinder was covered in the blue paint. I needed to work out what to do before the paint dried. Genius! The roller and the paint worked just as I planned, but what did it say? A secret message had been printed on the blotting paper. It was some kind of coded message. It read, "Sub judice." I may not have learned a lot as a journalist, but that was a term I knew well. It means a legal case that is before the courts. Below it was a sequence of letters that made no sense. I suddenly realized there was a connection between the boat ticket and the coded message. The boat ticket was stamped Bateau de la Conciergerie. The conciergerie on the Ile de la Cité by the river housed the ancient law courts. So, sub judice could in this case mean literally under the law courts, below the conciergerie. I was pretty sure I'd found all I could here. And besides, all this opulence was making me pine for my regular life of poverty. This was a huge story. It was also one heck of a puzzle with a lot of pieces missing. But I was going to crack it. And if I could just remember the name of that fancy prize you get for being an ace journalist, I was definitely going to win it this time.
Did you find anything useful?
This carving, do you know anything about it?
It was Pierre's. What does the statue have to do with...
Please, I need to know.
He was given it by a friend, something to do with Africa.
He never explained any more.
No, but I think it was important to him, always on display. Why?
It was carved by my father.
Oh, I see. I didn't know.
Imelda, I will do everything I can to find the killer.
Thank you, my dear.
And if the police ask...
Don't worry. You were never here.
Sub judice was the key. I was going to have to find a way under the conciergerie. I decided to head straight for the quayside on the Ile de la Cité. If there was a way of getting under the conciergerie, it would have to be from there. Carchon wasn't the type for messing about on the river. He was up to something down here. Something that got him killed. The fence wouldn't move. The cross looked familiar. I'd seen it before. It was embroidered on the lace cloth I'd picked up at Carchon's apartment. I knew I was on the right track. I tried pushing the fence, but it wouldn't move. A strange pair of locks stopped the latches from releasing the gate.
So this is one of the many puzzles that come up in the game as a side quest or side puzzle, I suppose. tricky one. Juggling act. I think that did it.
Yes! One down, one to
Phew.
go.
Oh man, there's two of them.
Nothing like a good convent education for honing your lockpicking skills. For a room full of junk, that was one very sophisticated lock system. This place was
I'll say.
definitely fishy, in more ways than one. The skiff hadn't been touched for years. I've got an exercise bike just like that. It was almost as if the fence was intended to double as a bridge. I really didn't want to pull the fence back up and risk trapping myself in this place. No handle, nothing obvious, but there had to be a way to open it. Oops. It was an old shell case, probably from the 50s. I knew what I was talking about. I grew up watching war movies. An old shell case. I wondered what that was doing there. A rough hole was cut into the pillar. The words sinister and Dexter were carved on either side. Now any
Dexter.
good convent girl like me knows the old Roman for left, right, right. But what did it mean here? Rolling out the painted cylinder had given me a print of a secret message. It read, Sub Judice. Below it was a sequence of letters. S, D, S, S, D, S, S. Nothing happened. Nothing happened. Mystery solved. Carchon's stone cylinder slotted into the hole with a satisfying click. A satisfying click told me I turned it to the right position. It felt like tumblers in a safe. Another click, another step closer. I love the sound of locks clicking open. I removed the stone cylinder. Ut lex vel ut next sumito. To the law or unto death submit. I guess these people didn't believe in liberté, égalité, or fraternité. Yes, I'll admit it. I was a swot at school. I also wore lipstick and the nuns never knew. The cross looked familiar. I'd seen it before. Oh my God! The slab came down with a hell of a force. With nothing to hold it up, the cross dropped back down again. panel wouldn't move. Lifting the cross closed the entrance door and also opened some kind of stone panel. Ingenious. The stone slab had flattened one end of the shell case. I couldn't see a gap to insert it. The stone cross was propped up. Now I was getting somewhere. I touched the slot. Nothing bad happened, which was good. I've always been attached to my fingers. This slot was designed for something specific. But what? The flattened lip of the shell case was too wide. A door made out of stone. They normally are. The cross didn't need to be propped up. I took the stone cylinder. The artifact slotted into the hole perfectly. Behind the old walls, I could hear some kind of mechanism groaning into life, but whatever had been triggered had now jammed. I removed the shell case. The cross didn't drop back down. Some kind of mechanism was holding it up. Another good use for a shell case. Another secret room. Somebody had something to hide. But was it what I was looking for? Wow! Through the darkness, I could see that this was a stateroom. But for what purpose? And how did it tie in with Carchon?
I think it's a trend in adventure games to be searching for a light switch in the dark.
Amazing! The thing still worked. The room lit up bright as day. Lady Justice stared out from a stone door, which was locked and reinforced with steel bands. A door like that always has something important behind it. I had to find a way to unlock it. That wasn't going to help. I wasn't going to find anything in this old desk. It hadn't been used for years. Inside the drawer, I found a note written in some kind of code. It was pretty clear from the lack of dust that someone had been working very recently at this desk. Oh my God! The sheet was a printout with my personal information. Everything from my favorite food to my waist size. They were right about chocolate. But come on, guys, I'm a size 10. There was even a picture of me, taken with a telephoto lens. Carchon wouldn't have taken these pictures himself. This was big and organized. I was part of it, and people were getting murdered.
So there you have it. That's the first 50 minutes of Broken Sword. This director's cut is quite